Here in Studio One, I've got two guitar parts. In fact, they're an identical recording. I just copied from one over to the other. And I've adjusted how loud they are with two different methods. With the top one in blue here, I've used the gain envelope feature, okay? And what I've done is I've increased over time here how loud the clip is by exactly 10 decibels. Now, if you don't know about the gain envelope feature, if you just right-click on an event like this, you can check this box here where it says gain envelope, and then after you've done that, you can go ahead and just sort of draw in changes like so, yeah, and you can see that as I do that, it's reflecting those changes visually, yeah, with the waveform, okay, and that's kind of important. Let's undo that and have a look at how I've changed the loudness of the second track. In this case, I've used volume automation, okay, so it looks kind of similar, but what it's doing now is adjusting that fader for that channel over time. But again, I've done it by exactly the same amount. That is an increase of 10 decibels. So let's have a listen to both of these, starting off with the first one where I've made the changes using the gain envelope. And as you may expect, it got louder. Let's have a listen to the second one where I've used volume automation. Same result. In fact, it's an identical result. So if you're going to get an identical result, it doesn't really matter which method you use, right? Wrong. Hi folks, I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. Recently I heard a story about somebody teaching people that they really don't need to use faders to adjust their mix. They can just adjust the gain and automate that. And I thought to myself, well, you can do as you wish, but I think there's a fundamental difference between adjusting gain and adjusting volume with your fader. I'm going to demonstrate that now. Here I have the same example that we had in the intro, these two guitar parts, one adjusted with the gain envelope, the other one being adjusted with volume automation. This is the equivalent of adjusting the fader, okay? Now, in this instance, what I've done is I've applied a plugin to both of them, and that is the Ampire plugin, which comes with Studio One, okay? I've set up a little sound here, and in fact, I'm using exactly the same settings with both of these guitar parts here. Let's just have a listen to how it's sounding at the moment on a sort of one of the quieter passages of the piece, yeah? Sounds much better now, of course. Now, I would describe that as a sort of a mildly overdriven sound. We're definitely getting the sound of an amp, and it's just sort of breaking up just a little bit, okay? So this one that we're listening to there is the one where we've adjusted by volume, the second one, okay? So let's have a listen to it now as it passes through that volume change that I've created there. Okay, and as you may expect, it just got louder, okay? So what's the difference now when I swap over to the first one, where rather than using volume, we've used gain? Let's have a listen to that. Now, what you may have noticed there is, as well as getting louder, there was quite a difference in sound. Now, just in case you didn't pick up on it, here's the one in the louder part here where we were using gain automation. And volume automation. Gain. Volume. Okay, so what happened with the first one, the gain one, is that we got a lot more breakup, we got a lot more distortion there, okay, a lot more overdrive. And that's exactly what you should get, because what's happening is we're sending more signal to this plugin, this Ampire plugin. And just like in the real world, amplifiers tend to break up the louder you play your guitar if you turn the volume up on your guitar, okay? And that's what we would expect. With the second part here, where we're adjusting the volume, we're just making it louder, as if you turned up the volume on your stereo or on your phone or something like that. There's no actual change to the sound. That is the fundamental difference between the two. And you may think, well, okay, that's okay for electric guitars, it doesn't matter anywhere else. Well, this is a very obvious example that we're using here, but often the difference is a little bit more subtle. Let's take a look at that. Okay, we're about to get geeky. In this example, I've got a recording of a sine wave at the top here. Now, you can't really see the waveform because it's very, very quiet. I wanted to have room to turn it up, but trust me, it is there. In fact, if I press play, you'll be able to hear it. Not the most exciting sound in the world, but a very useful sound because it's very, very pure. But the good news for you is we don't actually have to listen to it. I'm going to mute it because we're more interested in actually looking at its results at the moment. And we're going to look at it using this plugin which comes with Studio One, and that is called the Spectrum Meter, okay? And I've got it inserted on my master bus at the moment. Okay, so let's play our sine wave again. And you can see it's appeared here, okay? It's at 440 hertz, and that's our sine wave. Now, also in this channel, I have a plugin inserted. If I pull that up, you can see this is not, unfortunately, included with Studio One. It's a third-party plugin, and it's from Universal Audio. It's their LA2A compressor, okay? It's switched off at the moment, so let's switch it on. And do bear in mind, when we make changes, even volume changes with the spectrum meter, tends to kind of jump around a bit. We have to wait for it to settle. So I'll turn the plugin on and we'll just wait for it to settle, and you can now see our sine wave just looks exactly the same, right? There's no change here, and that's partly because I've got some very, very mild settings on this compressor, okay? The gain is turned down pretty low, peak reduction is turned down pretty low, okay? So let's make some adjustments to this, but first of all, what I'm going to do is adjust this using the fader, okay? So this time I'm adjusting volume. I'm going to gradually push it up to its maximum that I can do on the fader, which is 10 decibels. So we see the spectrum meter just sort of jump around a bit. It's settled now, and the only thing that's happened is our sine wave got a little bit louder, okay? If you could hear it, you would have heard it get a little bit louder. But trust me, it got louder and we can see it there. So let's just reset our fader, okay? So nothing dramatic happened. This time I'm going to add 10 decibels using the gain control, okay? This is the equivalent of adjusting using the gain envelope, but I'm just going to use the control here on the channel, okay? So I'm just going to go up to the top there. I'm just going to push that up by roughly 10 decibels, okay? So it's around about 10 decibels. Wait for it to settle. And what we can see here now is something a bit different. Not only do we have our original sine wave, but we've got some additional information here, yeah? This is a harmonic. This has been added by the plugin. Let me switch the plugin off for a moment. Yep, no harmonic. Switch the plugin on, harmonic, okay? And that harmonic has been generated because we're sending now enough gain when we added those extra 10 decibels to the plugin to create some difference. The plugin is now reacting. Now, if you were listening to this, you'd have to have very, very good hearing to hear the difference, in my opinion, but maybe you could, okay? So we're just getting that little harmonic being added with these settings. Okay, well, let's have fun with this. Let's add another 10 decibels, but this time we're going to use the fader. So we're adding 10 decibels of volume. Okay, we'll push that up, wait for the meter to settle. And what's the result? Well, we've got a louder sine wave and we've got a louder harmonic as well. No real surprise there, I don't think, okay? So rather than using the fader to add those extra 10 decibels, let's just reset the fader, yeah? And let's add those extra 10 decibels using gain this time, okay? So we're going to go up to roughly 20 decibels in total. So we push it up, push it up, push it up, push it up, around about 20 there. And what have we got now? Well, we've got the original sine wave. We've got that original harmonic. It's a little bit different volume now, but we've got a whole bunch of other harmonics, okay? Now, I'm going to say that if you listen to this, let's have a listen to that sine wave, in fact. Let's bypass the plugin. you can't hear much difference, can you? There is a difference, okay? I've made a whole other video about this on my Creative Source channel, but I would say that don't let that deter you, because often these differences are rather subtle, but as you use more and more plugins over your whole mix, there's a kind of a cumulative effect, if you like. That's very common in mixing and mastering, by the way, that we'll only get very small changes with individual plugins, but there will be this cumulative effect, you know, across the board. So, but as you can see, adjusting gain has a very different result in the case of this plugin than adjusting the fader. Now, of course, not all plugins are going to add things like harmonics as you send them extra gain, okay? So that's worth being aware of. Typically, it's going to be plugins which are emulating real-world hardware, okay? Because that's where it tended to happen naturally. Now, one of the scenarios where you may want to be aware of this, where I personally tend to have a few plugins in a row, would be when I'm processing vocals. If you'd like to find out more about how I process vocals in Studio One, then I'd take a look at this video right here.